Good afternoon. This is the House Appropriations Committee. It is Friday, February 28th, 2025. It is 2:16 in the afternoon, and we're going to have one more round before we go home for town meeting break and take a look at the FY26 budget. So I think we all have the web report and we have the language, and some of you have told me that you have some things you're ready to close on because you've been busily working. And so let's see, Wayne, did you have a couple you wanted to talk about?
Here, I'll give you, everybody, I remember we had questions from about the veterans home
Yes.
that I queried. Yeah. What's that?
Yeah.
I think I'm not sure of it. Everybody's getting. Here's two more.
Okay.
I got it. So what we didn't see before, what we saw before, we saw what was in the original budget request for FY23 and 24 and 25, but we didn't see what the BAA provided for additional funding. So then we got FY26 and they came in with a full budget, 30, and of course no BAA yet, but so if you take a look at the totals at the bottom, you can pretty much see that it's been pretty flat across the last 4 years. So you don't see any big surprise there, right? So, you know, I think, as far as I'm concerned, your opinion also, but I think that's all we're gonna be able to get for information to inform us on this. So we close it up.
Thanks, Wayne. It's helpful to see it this way. The only thing that surprises me is that from 23 to 24, there was a huge jump in general fund from 5.9 to 9.5 million.
I don't know why. But that accounted for the total bump in the total spending.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was the visiting nurses.
Hey, I was just gonna say that.
That was the visiting nurses, and then of course then the reason why it might be down, probably coming down a little bit is because they said that they are now training up LNAs. And so some of those are coming online. So
We put together a training program with funding so that they could have, that would be one of the locations for training LNAs and things like that. So,
some of those will be coming on
Yeah.
to decrease those costs.
okay.
What's the number on that?
In the web report, it's,
It's 342.
that's what I do, 342.
So are we checking it off?
I think that's what
Yeah.
Wayne is recommending. Are people good with that? This is helpful to see it this way, Wayne. Thanks for following through and getting that.
Well, I wanted to understand it.
Yeah. On our terms.
So
Okay.
then we got BGS, Buildings and General Services, B120.
120.
And,
Hang on, we'll-
actually, let's go back. There's a whole bunch of them. Let's go to, the
Yeah.
first one is,
we closed on B112.
yep. And the next one is B113.
B113, you're good to close on that?
I think so. If you look through all these, they're just the 3% or whatever the increase was because of,
Right. Or in that case, it's down.
yeah.
Okay, you're talking about engineering.
Yes.
B113.1 is engineering capital projects.
So but 113 we can close?
I think so, yeah. I think we can close them all.
Close them both.
So capital projects.
Yep.
We're good on that.
Information centers are B114.
Yep.
And again, same thing. There's slight increase and it's all COLAs.
Yeah. Okay.
Then B115,
Everybody good with 114? Okay.
B115, same deal. Well, we have something up a little bit more, but what was it? Interdepartmental transfers were up some. But again, I think it's fine. These are just a purchasing.
Pretty standard. Okay. So that's B115.
And then B116 is postal services. Again, same story. They're up like $30,000.
Okay, so we're good to close. Okay. Okay.
117 is the copy center, same deal, it's only up a little bit, and it's, personal
Okay.
services.
All right.
Fleet management, again, pretty much same deal. Spec expenses there, and we already closed out P119, I believe,
Yep. 20.
and 120.
Okay.
1 is, property management, and this went down, for whatever reason.
I think that's related to Cherry.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's, you're right, that was because, Cherry Street was sold, and so they didn't have to do the services for that,
I don't
that
know, it's
square
been
foot.
sold vacant. The
Vacant,
expenses are
right.
now.
Okay,
And then, 122, fee for space.
yep,
And that is up a little bit like everything else, and I don't think there's any surprises there either.
right, okay.
And that's all of them.
That's a good chunk of things, Wayne, thank you.
And the other one's the military.
Oh, yes, okay.
And,
Remind me what number that is, 2 something, right?
Yeah, I'll forward the pages over. Military is B 216. 215. 215.
215?
And the question that you had was on the grants.
Yeah, it's actually, and I would. Yes, is that, yes, those are the grants, those are the scholarship money.
Scholarship money,
Yeah.
there's space for scholarships and certificates, or, somebody wanted to get a CDL license,
Right.
or, a whole lot of things like that. And, so they said they would like that money because they have, I think you said 600 troops coming back in April, which is about a third more than what came back last year.
Uh-huh,
And that's generally when they apply for these grants and everything, is when they're returning from deployments. And,
how much did they use last year?
I think they used, what was it, 1 million? I think they were like 200 and some odd thousand less than
Short,
what was the total was,
okay.
as I recall. I have to look back.
That's what I think they did around the previous year, was around, they spent around 1.1 million or
Yeah.
1,050,000, something.
We can look back. We really know exactly. Look
I
back.
mean, we kept that level, but I just want to be sure it's getting spent, just like we look with all of our programs, so. For now, I'd be willing to leave it where it is, but I really want to keep an eye on, because this is their reason this year.
But the thing is, what we know is that given the discussion we just had, we may have to look at a lot of pots.
Exactly, so this might be a spot. We're looking in the sofa cushions.
Yeah.
If we need to. So, I'm okay with leaving it this way for now. If we don't end up using it, I want you to be on it for next year to see what actually happened, because what I'm hearing is they said they think they'll use it all because the troops are coming back, and then if that isn't the case, then we have another story.
Well, and should be quite obvious because it's.
Yeah.
Because they're claiming that it's about a third more troops coming back this April than what came back last.
But so April, that's still this fiscal year, so there's still some money for them for this fiscal year.
Yeah.
Through May, June, July,
Yeah,
so.
it's just- I think the way they figured it was when they're coming back in April, they'll be applying
Yeah,
for that
Okay,
next week.
yeah. so,
So are we checking off 215 for now?
yes,
And I think the rest of them, that's the only one I think we had any questions on. I think the other ones.
the other ones are pretty straightforward because they are what they are, unless anybody has any other questions about air service,
Most of it's federal.
building maintenance, veterans affairs. Okay,
So that would complete me.
so you're all done. Wow. Okay, we should give them a couple more next year. I guess we're gonna have to work on that.
So while we're
Okay, Jim?
in that area. The liquor and lottery. It's it's going to be 236.1. I would like to record, this all comes out of the liquor fund. With one change, the biggest part of their increase is 1.8 2 million for their business to business system project, which is enabling licensees to order their liquor online. It's really a one-time expense, but the way it is in here, it's in your base. I would like to recommend that we check off 236.1 with changing, taking out that 1.82 million, and putting it as a one-time. It will still come out of the enterprise fund.
Right.
But we won't be looking at it next year and saying, you know, it could be decreased, or if it doesn't decrease, you know, put it. And if you understand what
Yeah,
I mean.
no, I do, I just, one-time expenditures in our list usually are, general funds or
I know.
occasionally we call operating funds, but, you know, we could do that, we definitely could do that.
Yeah, how do you account for it, given the choices of things they have, special funds, tobacco
Well,
funds?
we have to be very specific about,
It would be a separate line from the enterprise fund
yeah,
to,
yeah, yeah,
But doesn't the enterprise fund go into the general fund? Ultimately, so what we're saying is.
yeah, it doesn't change the general fund either way,
well,
whether you put it in the base or whether you put it in that one.
Well, I'm not used to DLL using the enterprise fund without it having gone into the general fund first, like it's.
And
I've
after
always-
their expenses, a certain amount goes into the general. So
Yeah.
they're gonna have the same expenses here. It's just a matter of how we account for the 1.82 million.
Sure.
let's make one quick suggestion and, you know,
Yeah.
feel free to reject it, but we could put, some language in section E 236.1 that says of the enterprise appropriation in this section, 1.82 is one-time expenditure.
Okay,
So
that
you don't
would
have,
be
you
fine.
don't have to look beyond the,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, okay,
I'm fine with that.
okay, good.
And then does that sort of answer your question too, Tom?
Yeah, I'm just curious, I mean, again, it's been a little while since I've had to think about it, but I'm curious. In the past, I don't remember them saying, well, we have the enterprise fund that we can use for upgrading our IT stuff and whatnot, and so this is new to me to hear them using, like, we're gonna take from the enterprise fund to do this, rather than saying it's gotta come back through a one time, but that's.
I'm not sure how much IT upgrading they were doing, because this whole business to business, system is new.
No, but 5 years ago, it was about upgrading their point of sale stuff.
Okay.
And integrating, the fact that you need two
And
different points of sale.
they probably listed it the same way they did
Yeah.
here.
No, it's fine, it's
Yes,
just,
okay.
I think that it just clarifies it so that we're not,
yeah, I don't have I
you're
just,
not.
Yeah, no, good question.
What number was that?
It's B 236.2.
236.1.
Page 22 on my.
Right.
Huh.
So I think with the language change, and I like that suggestion, yeah.
Fine.
I think it's fine to close, if everybody's okay with that. Okay, did you have some others you wanted to close, Jim?
Uh,
We'll go around and
Yeah.
come back to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, does anybody else have anything they're thinking about that they might be able to close? At this point, Tom, do you, anybody or
well,
talk
just,
about one?
just in the conversation I just had with the agriculture folks, so all of the administrative costs, they can close, we can close. But there's a chunk in there about grants, like, and specifically to, the one big ask that we would have to deal with is the one time is the working lands fund. So generally speaking, there's a list of 5 or 6 grants that they give out every year.
Right,
The crop cash. So those parts aren't closed.
right, but those would be one time.
Yeah, so I don't know where they fit in.
It doesn't matter because they'd be in the B1100 section, because we're not gonna put them in the base.
So in that,
Well, they have, I think they might have asked to put it.
Right.
well, no, well, crop cash is a question about A, getting one-time money again, and B, wouldn't it be nice to be in the base?
Yeah.
These other grants are in the base. I
Right,
just don't know where they
so,
fit here.
so they're in the base for a certain amount. And what we have done in the past is if they want more, we've been using one-time money for that. We're not adding it to the base in general. So it can be in two places. So Working Lands asked for 3 million. They have 1 million in here. I know they'd like to have 3 million in the base.
Yeah, no, they've had it in the past and I'm not, and it's not now to argue about it,
Right.
but just however we figure to say, like,
Right,
everything except those grants. We talked through and they're fine, because
Yeah.
they're very straightforward.
right, Okay.
But it's that page.
Right.
In their document that they
Right.
handed out that has, there has to be some conversation about that.
yes, and we will have the conversation, but I think that those are likely to be in the one-time section. So we could close these, and then if we decide we want to put them in the base, we just reopen it up and say we're gonna put them in the base.
Sure. That's fine.
What number is that?
B 222 through B 25.2.
Okay, so 222 is admin, so there aren't any grants in there. Food safety and consumer protection have grants, and I don't know what grants those are that are in that one.
And they may not be listed on the five, that page grants that's in their document. They might be the way that they receive funds.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that the ones that you're talking about are mostly in the agricultural development section.
Yes. I would agree.
And the other grants may be about classes or things like that around food safety. I think they give some classes around that.
Or just something they receive from the government.
So 223, are we,
I think we're checking that off.
and 224 were holding.
You can hold 224.
Why don't we hold 224?
And then 225, 225.1, 225.2.
Those are good or no?
Those can be closed tonight.
So the clean water, so 224 we're holding open. Okay, 220. Oh, there's 225. 225 is at the bottom. Yes. That 225.1 and 25.2. My only question is, yeah, I mean, it looks like it's pretty standard. Not sure what grants are in that when it says clean water. Do you remember what grants are in there?
No, I don't.
Why don't we just hold that until we know what those are?
Yeah.
Some of it's clean water fund, it's transferred. I don't break down.
Yeah,
And I also think that not right now, because we got this discussion going on between EPA and the issue around farms. I don't think we're going to resolve it before we get to deciding on this budget. It's going to be something probably taken up in the AA over the next week. So
yeah, okay. Always something to look forward to.
Well, and I think like everybody else, the caveat is. Who knows, it's gonna happen.
Right,
They seem to be not necessarily held harmless because they've been told that there are some pros and cons, but that they're still operating as businesses in most of their stuff, so hasn't been directly affected quite yet.
yeah. So I'm thinking,
Well, I'm not talking about what the Trump administration is doing, I'm talking about the EPA suit.
Yeah, no, it's every day's a new.
so I'm just thinking if you want to go delve in, if any of you wanted into your own budgets in more detail, if you go to the Joint Fiscal Office, under subjects, it says appropriations and budget. And then there's a section on the right side, parallel to the words appropriations, called view budgets by department. And Then you have to go into the big categories. So agriculture, for whatever reason, is protections to persons and property. That always makes me laugh. Let's see. Agriculture. I'm wondering if I go to Vantage reports in there, there's three things under. Yep,
Yeah, if you go to the budget book,
right. Do we have you mean the huge budget book?
no, I mean, online, on
Right.
JFO website.
That's where I am.
Exactly.
That's where I'm going.
And
So I'm
then you
trying
can open
to
up
walk
the grant.
through the where they need to get to, right? So there should be something in this that would tell you what the grants are for. In the Vantage.
There is a list.
There's, there should be a list of grants, that go out.
Yeah, I'm just seeing something under agriculture, food and markets, other grants, 20 million. For details. No, the grant program, not who the applications are, it's the grant programs. I'm seeing all the staff positions.
So, I don't see anything actually in grant detail, but, if you had a specific question, I can ask them for this.
Yeah, so I think that the grants we'd be interested in, Maria, would be the ones in, well, maybe all three, B 223, B 224, and 225.2.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
We, in other areas, other departments, we can find the specific grant programs, so it's not that ABC Farm got 250,000, it's the Working Lands Grant Program for $1 million. And in this case, when I looked at the grants roll-up, I saw 29 million, so that wasn't really very helpful. Okay, so this is one of the many ways Maria is helpful. Okay, so we will leave the ones closed that we said and the couple open and wait to hear what we hear from Maria on those. Okay. Does anybody else have anything that they're thinking they're ready to close? Oh, yes,
Yes.
ADS. And we have the letter from Energy and Digital
Yeah.
Infrastructure.
I'm not talking about the one time.
No.
They supported it, but still waiting for JFO numbers, but I can regularly.
E105. Oh, I'm much more disorganized. But you're doing okay.
Even bigger things. Wow. Their total is actually down in the, but that's because the projects have decreased. They also gave me a list of projects that are. If he is this year and next year. And those are all charged to the various departments, state government. The general fund is. Going by memory here, but around total of around 220,000. The rest of it is either special funds like the technology fund or interdepartment transfers, which is the billing back to the various agencies. So I've gone through the crosswalk with them. There is no slide. The only open question is the 15 million.
Right, okay. And so this is where the committee letters come in handy as just more information.
Right.
And in this case,
They,
Energy and Digital Infrastructure supported the 15 million. And they are going to be having extra oversight on that 15 million over the next 2 years to make sure that it's working.
and
the
they're
way-
also doing a bill on oversight of the technology products.
Right. The Energy Committee, it's cross everybody. So Mike Nigro, you have a couple of here because of the fund transfer to the tax computer modernization fund. They looked at those two and supported those. They also supported the 1.575 million on the Willis section. That's Tom's,
I was lost for a moment because I was just looking at
That's
something
okay.
else, so I'm
That's
sorry.
okay. You don't have to have an answer. I'm
Okay.
just saying, when you look at the committee letters, don't assume that you know where all your stuff is. So here's two things about the tax computer modernization fund. That would be yours, Mike, because it's
Yeah.
the tax department, but because it's IT, it's in digital, energy and digital, I'll never say it right. Digital energy committee. So I've printed out all we're still missing two. Yeah,
E and D.
E and D.
E.
So you want to take a look at these letters and see if you've got something in somebody else's that you might not have thought about that,
And they're a little confusing too, because everybody doesn't use the same form.
no, they don't. And
Yeah, I'm with you.
Next time, maybe give them a format.
we've tried. So this is my,
I'll give
yeah.
Fill in the blanks.
Well, the question is, how much work are we going to give to joint fiscal office and legislative council to make these look right? And everybody's got different kinds of things that are an issue. Some are very simple, some are much more complicated. We just about killed Ledge Council last biennium with what people were doing, and I promised I wouldn't do that again. So we're trying a different way. We have yet to figure out like the perfect way to do this. Some people don't have a lot of stuff, like this is a shorter letter. Other people have larger ones. And then even no matter what I say,
You don't do it. I saw one that looked quite nice. It said the governor's recommended this. We want this instead of that. We want this.
right,
And that was.
those are very helpful. So I could also, at the end, we could all decide which ones we really like, and I can share them with the other chairs and say, here's an example of what worked well.
Yep.
But it just depends on what they have and what they're, what's in the budget. And yes, they're creative.
Someone will say, and I'm not gonna say who, someone will say, it's about the dollars, not how it looks.
So watch it, have a little sign that says, no.
Which is true. It is about.
But it's also about us being able to understand what they're saying. Yeah,
I get it, I'm just,
I'm looking forward to hearing about that. So do take a look at at all the committee letters, even if you just sort of skim some of them. And Maria, do you get copies of committee letters?
I do have.
So you can add to our little spreadsheet.
Yeah, I will go.
A bunch of this is already in the spreadsheet,
Yeah.
but then there's new stuff that we haven't
Yeah,
seen
there's
before.
always new stuff. It's like the Easter egg hunt.
It is. Except you don't get chocolate at the end, you just have to find more money.
But
So we really are like over $200 million in requests.
Well, and we haven't gotten human services.
We haven't gotten human services yet. We haven't gotten education yet. Those are the only two. We have got, Commerce came last night. I haven't printed that one out yet. So I don't know what's in that one, but I read all the other ones last night. So, and then we have bills that are coming. And I was showing Tim, look, they want $155,000. Look, they want $2.5 billion. These are the bills. Now, that doesn't mean they're all gonna come off the wall and come to our committee.
Right.
And so we'll be working with Speaker and Air Traffic Control on what's really happening, but
I like the way you put that, traffic control.
it's, yeah, it's gonna be a challenging year. And I think we all see that, and I'm sure you're trying to tell your colleagues that, and I am too, and I'm not sure it always falls on, what's the opposite of deaf ears? Hearing ears.
Sensitive
I don't know. Hope springs eternal, let's just put it that way.
Maybe you put people and say, well, we recommended it,
Right,
we get to be the bad.
Right, right. Then that's how they like it.
I know.
And they really all owe us something, I think, dinner or something.
Hopefully that we don't end up in a situation at the DC airport.
Yeah. Yeah, so,
Huge part.
The air traffic control.
Okay.
not paying attention
Sometimes
to
they,
the
sometimes they
directions.
miss.
Sometimes I miss.
Yeah, there's one yesterday,
Ay.
was coming for landing, then took off.
That happens more often than you think. I've been on those.
I've been on planes like that,
Yeah.
We're only hearing about it now.
Yeah. So anyway, we have a challenge. When we come back, we have 2 weeks to make a lot of decisions. I'm not worried about the bills coming in, says knock on wood, that, because I think we are gonna have tons, but we have a lot of decisions around this to make. I think, Maria, we'll talk, but maybe, I'll send out to the committee what we've gotten in requests and recognize that it's not perfect. There's some places I just put in a number because I wasn't exactly sure what it was, but I knew there was something. So,
Do we, education reform has been given an extension.
mhm,
I don't know how long or what the expectation is, but
Yeah.
it sounds likely we will not have an ed bill before we send our budget out. Do we just leave some money on the bottom line and let the Senate fix that? Or,
well, what we did in budget adjustment was we have put 133.7 million, which is the bottom line.
yeah,
And we've put that in the cash fund in the special infrastructure and other reserves, so it's fenced off.
Yeah.
To be used in FY 26.
right,
So we know that there's that money.
right.
They
If we
don't,
spend, I know some of it's for property taxes too, but if we don't spend it all, then the Senate could take it out of there.
yeah. So I mean, we do have that pot reserved for it,
Or
and the
put it in the
language
ed-
is permanent
or-
housing or
right,
ed,
Right, and we
or
can
other
put it in the
uses.
ed bill
right?
when it leaves here.
It could be, yeah, or, yeah. And I think Ways and Means is gonna do a yield bill just based on what they know, regular stuff. Which would then, but then what could happen is that then we could put a number on the bottom line. That's just what we did last year. We put 25 million in general fund to help reduce that, but the yield, so.
So with all the different moving parts, whether it's education, are you saying that we have to stay after school? Of detention? But the idea of, not knowing. I mean, so you just spent the last 4 years not knowing because there's been hundreds of millions of dollars to work through, and there's been a certain fluidness to, this is a fairly straightforward budget year. But with the federal government, with the education system, so how does that affect us from this is the way we have always sort of done things before COVID, to, like, how do we, because the goal, I mean, I've always understood this budget represents the House's values, right? By the time we finish,
Mhm.
we're supposed to pass it over to the Senate. And there's some things that they'll fix, and then there's some things that they'll always move around. And that's what conference committee is for, but this seems to me, the BAA had a lot of that, but this seems to me like we're entering into a zone that's kind of like, if anybody starts to get really parochial about the dates and the times and the deadlines, then we really will be here till June.
Yeah.
Is that, I mean, I'm just,
Yes, I mean, we have been told that I mean, I would expect, I have no secret knowledge, but I would expect we're gonna go beyond our usual 18 months.
and I think the end of it for me is like, we've tried to have a discipline, right? We've been told, at least the policy committees, has to have discipline.
Right.
Say, if it's not in our budget, when the conference committee comes, our culture has changed. It's no longer, I have something in my jacket that we're not supposed to argue. I mean, again, conference committee is a little different because that's where you hash it all out, but it seems like there's so much that's integral to what our values might be, the education budget in particular, that, I'm just, I don't know, I know you don't have an answer to
Yeah,
that, but.
this year, you know, and, we say this every year, but really this year is not like any other year because we don't know what's gonna happen in Washington. But we also need to continue with what we do have. And if it's appropriate to react and respond at some point down the road because something really happens and sticks in Washington. I mean, we have all these, you know, throw it against the wall and see what sticks. Then we'll deal with that when we deal with it. But in the meantime, I think we need to assume, we have to assume what we know now and go ahead and build a budget based on what we know now. And make our best decisions. And, you know, we all, I think, have a lot of common agreement around what are the core services of government and that we are here to serve Vermonters and we want to serve all Vermonters as best we can within the confines of what our money box is. And so that's all we can do.
Well, having been on this committee only 2 years, I don't have much perspective. But this year really does feel different to me because the requests that people are making are pretty core. I mean, we're talking about bridging the gap with the loss of the ACO to the AHEAD model. And, you know, there is a ripple effect to so many of the decisions we do with me, and the DC makes. And I don't, I guess part of what I expect we'll want to talk about is what happens, for example, just using that bridge from, you know, ACO to AHEAD, what happens to primary care? You know, is the money really enough for primary care providers?
And what are the impacts if we don't do it?
Yeah. And we heard so much testimony about what seemed to be pretty critical systemic needs, you know, from law enforcement to human services and healthcare. So it is, I'm trying to think about what are the questions I need to be asking myself, you know, as I look at all of the letters and everything I know about my sections, but the whole picture, like what's the narrative we're trying to develop about like what we can and want to fund, you know, this year, and where do we need to make sizable investments versus where, I mean, do we try to spread money broadly, you know, or do we need to invest in the future? It's just, boy, this is gonna be hard.
Yeah.
I guess for me, I mean, I'm trying to, you know, bring the perspective that we have current obligations, things we do year after year. We've been closing off a number of things off here that make perfect sense. And then, you know, what do you do with all the new initiative things above and beyond?
Right, and
You know,
are they new initiatives or are they new initiatives that support what we've all heard are serious problems like housing assistance?
Right, or maybe
you know?
taking the place of something that may have sunsetted here for us.
Mhm.
Looking at higher education here, I know there's a big chunk there, you know. But I've been very clear with all the committee groups I've met with is that, you know, we're taking a look at, you know, pretty easy look on things that are going to be typical here for you or something to kind of move things ahead and make like Vermont State College's whole, for example. But then there's extra stuff that, you know, the capital stuff that comes from a different area here for sure.
Right, but even they all still even have, you know, they want 5 million for the cancer center. This is like the 3rd or 4th year that UVM has asked for that.
That's right. We have that budget information now.
And
Yeah.
we can
Yeah,
acknowledge that everything is worthy. And we have to acknowledge that we can't fund it all. So
And I'm
we're
not
holding
not
this-
suggesting that's something that's just.
No, I know you're
Or we're going to do it again here because we may have to make a hard choice
Yes.
with that. And I think we need to really consider, you know,
having some thought here, maybe some conversation at some point about what chunk of money we just kind of save aside here, given what we don't know. We don't know
Right.
what we don't know, right?
Right, and some of that I'll be, continuing to
Right.
talk with JFO and the speaker and, whatever, so
I think we just,
we'll be getting some
we have to be smart
direction.
to do that.
We don't have to make all those decisions ourselves.
And I have
So-
lived through 2008.
Yeah.
Managing a department when you had to lift people. You had to decide
Right,
what your core services were that you had to do.
we had to do a rescission because the budget adjustment that year was $150 million shortfall, so they had to cut $150 million out of the budget.
Yes.
And imagine us having to do that today,
Okay.
right?
We're
They
just,
have to.
Well, we may, exactly, so what I'll talk to Maria and we'll get you this just draft list of what we have for requests so far. Recognize it's not perfect and it's not complete, but you'll get an idea of what we've been hearing. And next to it is what the governor has put in the budget, because the governor used all the money. So if we're gonna do anything on the right side, we have to take something from the left side.
Got some meeting,
You're still looking, hang on a second.
who helps us with language in the event we need to have some plans, like we don't know until summer or the fall of changes in our federal rate.
Right. So, I know that Emily Kornheiser is working on authority for joint fiscal committee. And so we may be expanding that authority. Right now,
100%.
if there's a 1% drop in federal money or something, then we automatically can do something. The problem is that's across the board. So let's just say the Department of Labor loses 90% of their funding. Well, that's not going to trigger a 1% drop, but it's going to make a huge difference about unemployment. So we need to have a more flexible authority about that. So that's what she is working on, is language around that. So we're going to do that. We have information about rescission somewhere. We also have federal government shutdown information that you did a couple of years ago, Maria?
A couple of years ago.
Debt ceiling,
I'm trying to update it, that's what.
weeks, right?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
One at a time, please. Maria's talking. Mike,
So a couple of years ago, it was on our webpage, and we can send it around, but I put together an issue brief on, federal shutdown. So I'm trying to update that. Things are a little bit different, as you know, this time around.
Yeah.
So rather than trying to guess what's gonna happen, at the federal level, I'm kind of focused on, we've had 2 continuing resolutions, and the second one, you just stated, and it's on 14th of midnight of March. So, what things are at risk, assuming that the rest of the world isn't gonna implode on us.
right,
Yeah. So that's what I'm working on.
Okay.
And there's some programs that are, funded, that are, mandatory programs, and so they don't have to be included in annual budget documents, but, anyway, so that's what I'm working on, that's what I've been doing while.
Okay.
And let's.
yeah, well, you're multitasking.
Yeah,
So is it helpful to look at the older paper that you wrote, or should we
So-
wait till you get something out?
let me send out the older one, I'll
Okay.
give it to, I'll just give it to Erin. and
Okay.
she can Send it to you, and I'm just, there's some things I'm updating, but,
Okay.
a lot of the information is similar.
Okay. And then was there one that somebody else, and it was Julia or somebody else did about rescissions in state government? That sounded all familiar.
Well, that I'll check, I'm sure there is,
Okay.
I know that we have a, statute that.
Maybe it's rescission statute that would be.
Yeah.
So this would be, just for you to read, so we all kind of understand that language. And then the governor can also always call us back in the session. And so some of what the JFC language might also include additional language that would say, here are the triggers that would require the governor to call us back into session. I don't know where that's all stands right now, but those are some of the things that people are thinking about. So we can try to keep government running as smoothly as we can. Dave, did you have a question?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment to get a reaction if I could, a sense of direction.
Yeah,
I've been thinking about budget areas within the realm that are in my portfolio. And I keep saying to myself, what can I do to help take pressure off property taxes? And as I think about that, I think about healthcare. And I believe that if we can do something to help abate, even reduce the rate of premium growth on our health insurance, that's a good thing on many fronts. And yet the only thing I keep thinking about, not the only thing, but the primary thing I think about is using some type of one-time funds as a bridge to the AHEAD program. And as I think about that, it's how would we strengthen primary care until I think it's 2027 when we believe AHEAD will be more operational. And yet I understand if you build a bridge and there's nothing there at the end, you got a problem. But
right.
I sense we have a problem anyways.
Yeah.
And if we don't do something, whether with one-time or base to primary care, not only will Vermonters have access issues, providers are going to have sustainability issues, but we're going to have more premium issues as more pressures fall on the very weak commercial insurance market that we have.
Right.
So my question with that is, if that's all wet, I'd rather know from you now. My feelings wouldn't be hurt, but I would stop trying to develop a model or something.
Yeah.
And I just don't know.
Yeah. So Dave, I appreciate your thinking, and I read the healthcare letter and chart if you can. I think they're thinking about primary care. Maybe we've all gotten emails. I certainly have about primary care and this bridge between ACO and AHEAD. I worry about the AHEAD model because of what's happening in Washington, and they already fired 2 people in that program, or 3 people, 2 of whom have been working with Vermont. So I don't know what that means, whether they're just reducing staff. So far, the people at the Green Mountain Care Board are not freaking out about that. So I'm following their lead, but we don't know. So keep thinking about that. I know that there are people thinking about what do we do about primary care, because the whole healthcare system is incredibly fragile right now in this state.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, Tom?
Would it be fair to say that at this point, I mean, Dave makes a great argument for primary care and for using one-time funds. We can all make arguments over each of the things. So would it be fair to say that, like, as of today, that everything is number 1 on the priority list? I'm just, and I'm being a little facetious, but just in terms of, at the end of this process, we're going to have, I mean, to me, this is all very interwoven. So choosing primary care over, all these other things that are going to come up
Yes, this is not, I have an example, but I probably don't use it. I mean, it's not between 2 easy things.
It's about 42 hard things.
It's about 75 hard things. So we'll get you this chart with all the caveats, the spreadsheet. You can start looking at that and saying, well, if we don't do that, we're okay. I mean, just have your own mental sort of thinking about how you would prioritize it. So we can start talking about that. And, I'm going to be holding my nose and crossing things off mentally and being sad that I can't do certain things. And we can't do everything. So we'll just, we'll see where we go, and we'll see what we learn while we're at town break. What happens with it. Don't read too much in the papers. Let's read the headlines. So, all right, with that, let's go off live. Aaron and I are going to talk about the agenda. We'll let you know. Assume we're going to meet on Monday in the afternoon on the 10th. Start at 1 or 1:30. Don't know exactly yet, but we'll we'll let you know if you have any questions or thoughts about that. We're gonna also have Teresa come in for, and then we'll have Alyssa Black come in for healthcare. So we'll have some of these key committees come in and talk to us the first week we're back, so we have a sense of what's happening with that. And otherwise, rest up, take a break, have some fun.
So we got those committee letters and stuff.
Oh,